Welcome to the Got Trauma podcast with your hosts, Courtney K. and Monica Newland.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
Hello.
We are here with another episode on the Got Trauma podcast. It's been a little bit since we've done a recorded episode.
Minute.
Yeah, because we've been doing a lot of other sort of interactions and lives and really connecting with community and on different platforms, which we also love. But it feels good to sort of be back in like the seat of our official podcast.
Back in our saddles.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm all tangled up in the wiring. Hold on, here I am. See, it's been so long, I forgot how this works.
But we are here and excited today because we have a special guest. As you can see, there's somebody joining us today. This is B, and we'll get into a little bit of an introduction of her. But the reason we have a guest on today is because we are starting a series called the Chronicles of Childhood Trauma, where we are featuring individual guests and their stories, significantly, how things have significantly impacted their healing journeys, things that they've been through in their lives, and really just highlighting B specifically today. This is going to be a series of several episodes. So Chronicles of Childhood Trauma is what we have coined this. So thank you so much for joining us, B.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Forgot. So the Chronicles of the Childhood Trauma, it is the child, the trauma, and the dysregulated adult, and basically evolving out of the dysregulated adult is the person that we kind of, discover later in life that we're like, whoa, better fix this person. So, and then the last part of that is becoming B. So take it away, B.
So yes, my name is B, which in all honesty is actually not my full name. That was a transition name, but we'll get into that meat of that story as time goes on here. So I myself was severely abused as a child by my biological father, my uncle, as well as various unknown party guests. And what I mean by party guests are the people that would show up at the family house when there were heavy drinking parties, heavy drug parties happening. I was a very sick baby, very sick child. And because of that, I was in and out of the hospital, not just from the abuse itself with broken bones, infections, neglect, failure to thrive, but many surgeries as well. From what I understand, too, and I only learned about this within the last few years, that at one point as a child, I was placed in foster care, but it was temporary. And that's a whole other story because I kind of remember how that all happened. But with my biological parents, there were bouts of the homelessness. There were bouts of my mother going to a women's shelter with us kids. So we experienced that aspect of the domestic abuse and violence, and the childhood abuse was transitioning into being on the streets or being in those halfway houses or those shelters. My father was the very first person to make an attempt to unalive me. Sadly, at that time frame, things were swept under the carpet. There should have been charges. There should have been things stepped forward to, just bring charges and have that come to light. And thank God he didn't succeed. I'm still here.
Yes, thank God.
Yeah. So I mean, from a very tumultuous childhood, I had an amazing teacher who her name is Miss Black. I don't know her first name. I just remember her as being Miss Black. And if it wasn't for her zeroing in on me and realizing that there was something wrong in my home life, I probably never would have ended up in foster care. I probably would have either been unalived or I probably would have been subjected to further abuse. But it was a teacher who stepped in and listened. I'm going to get emotional over this because she listened. She worked with me patiently to gain my trust. She listened to me. She actually kept me one day after school to go over some school work. And I was able to start sharing with her. She would point to bruises on my body and ask me where they'd come from. And I started sharing with her. What a blessing. What an angel, right?
Yeah.
You never
How,
know when those
how old
angels...
were you?
6.5. 6.5.
So
Yeah.
you were at the age where you were able to sort of articulate it to some degree, what you have been experiencing, but still so young to really know like that life shouldn't be like that. I mean, you're still
Exactly.
so young at 6 years
Yeah.
old, right? But
Well, that's like senior kindergarten, grade 1, right? Just to put it in that respect for people listening, how small you are at that age.
I think one of the key points was I definitely acted out in school. I was an uncontrollable child. I had a temper. I basically acted like my biological father did in the home, but I did so outside of the home because that was a normal behavior. So if I didn't get what I wanted or if another kid was harassing me, I resorted to being physical. And not only that, because of the malnourishment and the lack of attention and care, I was actually stealing kids' lunches in school because I was starving. And the teacher eventually caught on to why stuff was missing from people's lunch boxes and would find the garbage hiding in my desk, and she's like, there's something really wrong here. So yeah, I mean, those little things, if it wasn't for her paying attention and those details coming to light, I probably wouldn't have ended up in that permanent foster care placement. My father, my biological father, did make an attempt to discredit me by forcing me into hospitalization for assessment. I was there for probably about 6 months in a psych ward in the hospital. 6.5.
Jesus Christ. Sorry. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So my biological parents were actually allowed visitations. But that was another way for them to continue their abuses towards me. They couldn't get physical with me because there would be people present, right? But at the same time, they would either be a no-show, or they would show up and bring my sister, and all the attention would go to my sister, and I would be neglected. Or there would be the verbal abuse and the psychological abuse, the things that were already normal in the house that the care workers weren't fully aware of, like those trigger words and stuff. And yeah, like I felt the brunt of that for the duration of being in that hospital. But the blessing from that was he was not able to discredit me because they had individuals. So how do I put it? They could see through the bullshit. So they were able to see my father for what he was, and they were able to recognize a lot of what was happening, and implement what was necessary to protect me, which is what once again brought my sister and I into foster care. So his attempts were futile. Thank God for that, because he had doctors convinced, but he couldn't convince the psychologists.
Right.
So like I said, I'm just kind of going through here. With that being placed in foster care, that once again was my teacher's doing. I remember being called out of class, and I was apparently getting an eye assessment, an eye exam. And that's how it was told to me, is that I was going to get an eye exam. And I remember this very detailed. I remember the lady was tall. She had short hair, kind of reddish. She took me into another room. But this other room had, they brought toys for me to play with. And if you're familiar with play therapy,
yep,
they had me there, and they're like, just talking to me, and they're like, okay, they did a fake eye assessment. It was some weird thing on paper or whatever. But then they had me start playing with the toys. And it was that exact day that they said, you know what, we're going to go and pick up your sister and we're going to go and have ice cream and pie. Like, oh yeah, ice cream and pie. And we're going to go pick up your sister and we're going to go and have this treat. Now, I'm young. I don't know these people, but being young, naive, I trusted them. I went with them. And it turns out that they were the ministry people taking me from the school, which was the safest place to remove me from.
Right.
And they drove me straight to my brand new foster home.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this was all going on.
Is that a
and
good
you
thing?
had no idea.
I would say that one, it was a good thing that he didn't do it in the presence of my biological father and mother, because he was a very violent man, hair trigger temper. Like, I think they wanted to avoid any unnecessary chaos and extra trauma to the transition.
Yes, that makes sense.
But I have to say, they did it as smoothly as they could. So I give them credit for that. And the fact that I was brought to this other place and my sister was there, that was a sense of peace.
Mm-hmm.
But you're going into an unknown. You're meeting these people for the first time. You're coming to a brand new home that's not your norm. And you feel completely out of place and terrified.
Can't imagine.
Because now you're being told that this is where you're staying. And you're trying to, at 6.5 years old, you're trying to translate what exactly is going on. Because the other big thing, too, is despite the abuse in the family, you love your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You had that deep sense of loyalty and love for your abusers.
Yep.
That you feel like, and I know for myself, I felt like I betrayed them. I felt like I let them down. I felt like, as time went on and I'm transitioning into that foster home, and I had a lot of anger. But at the same time, I would say, Daddy, I love you. Please tell the truth. Daddy, I love you. Please tell the truth and get help. That's all I want. Just tell the truth, get help, and we can be a family again. Oh yeah. I know. It's I'm going to take a moment too, because obviously the feels are coming out. Because even at my age, at 49, I get transported to those moments and I'm right back in those moments in my head. I love you, honey. I love your rawness and your realness, and I love your vulnerability. We're going to take a moment and breathe for sure. You don't need to, no need to apologize. No need to apologize. This is the whole point of sharing. This is powerful right here. Whether people recognize that or not, this is powerful because this is real. This is real life. This is real trauma. This is the after effects of trauma. And it isn't just a flash in the pan. This is freaking lifelong shit we have to deal with. Pardon my French. But
no, absolutely. Oh, we swear on here all the time. It's totally it's totally
I have to say, I'm just taking a minute too to just sort of process what you're saying, because we have kids of our own, and it's I can't imagine what a child would have been thinking. Like, you must have been so confused. And I mean, thank gosh your sister was there. That's definitely a positive piece of this, that you had some sense of familiarity, because you were completely uprooted. And before that, I mean, you didn't know anything different than what your life was. So you didn't, now, so going back to like why we're doing this series is, a lot of the times we don't realize the trauma that we've actually endured until much later in life. And this is sort of you're talking about your very early on years and where things sort of started, which is, and we're going to get more into other pieces of your journey and your story. But, you're talking about, what your life was like, your earliest memories of what your life was like, and how confusing and what the systems were like. You're shedding awareness on what those systems. So we're all in Canada. For anybody who's listening outside of Canada, we're talking about the systems that are in Canada and how those things, have operated. And, those people, of course, were doing their best and they had your best interests at heart, of course. Right. So, I mean, I am happy to hear that they did it in a way where you were at school and you were able to, like, it wasn't this big, huge scene where they came and they barged into your house and they removed you, because I don't know a lot about, adoption and things like that, and being in foster care, but I know these are traumatic experiences. Probably it doesn't really matter how they go down.
Yep.
They did the best that they possibly could, and thank gosh that your teacher was involved. And I know that teachers have a big responsibility, and it's a lot for them to, of course, they're not trying not to overstep in each other's lives, the children's lives and things like that. But thank gosh she was able to interject on yours.
Absolutely. Angel in
No, for sure.
disguise. There's been several teachers, growing up that I swear angels in disguise, because she's my hero. I would love to find this woman and put my arms around her and say thank you.
Absolutely.
Because I strongly believe that if she didn't step in and love me the way she did as her student and report what was going on, I probably wouldn't be here today. If you think about my father's first attempt at unaliving me, who's to say that he wouldn't have made an attempt again and be successful?
Sure,
she's my hero in so many ways.
Yeah.
And all I know her as is Miss Black. And you were one of my teachers in Victoria. I have the rest of the information, but we'll do that another time.
Yeah, no, but for
I want to
sure.
find you.
No, I found this very triggering, and just to throw light on it, because when you were talking about it, like when I was a kid, that was a threat in our house.
Oh God, yeah.
You don't like it here, I'll call someone. So like that fear was always in the back of my head. Will there be a day that I'll just be torn from this home because I was bad, or I didn't listen, or I asked too many questions? So I just like listening to that whole, here you are, you're just like, oh, ice cream and pie. And then you're like, holy shit, new house and new parents. Like, what the hell? Just that whole scenario, just thinking of you as a little child is what choked me up. Cause I'm just like, it'd just be terrifying.
I think the other thing that a lot of people don't realize too is when you are in an abusive home, that becomes so normal for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you're, and hopefully for most cases, people get removed and they're placed into a good home, because there's quite high statistics where you get placed into another abusive home that's a foster home or a halfway house, and you're shuttled through the system. I just happened to be blessed with my sister coming with me and remaining in the same home. I think the hardest part of that transition too was going from there was violence every day, there were threats every day, you were so dysregulated all the time, to coming into a home where, oh my gosh, these people are kind, these people are doing everything they can to make that transition easy and smooth, and they're listening and they're caring, and there's no violence, there's no verbal abuse or mental abuse, like all of it. It was just like it stopped. Right. So your body goes into shock too, your mind goes into shock too, and you're going, and you don't feel that's real either, because you're going from something that's unnatural and evil and unhealthy to being beaten every day to nobody's touching me.
Right.
And I know I gave my foster parents a run for the money at the start, because I challenged them. I challenged the reality of that, because it was so not normal for me.
Yeah. Is your sister older or younger than you?
She's a year and 2 months older than myself. Yeah.
Okay.
So she was even.
Yeah, she was very. She still is actually very, very, very disassociated. I have my theories about her mental health. I don't think she's been properly diagnosed, but she's extremely unhealthy. I love her to death, but she is one of those people I had to go no contact with on her lifestyle. She's living a drug and alcohol addiction, but she's also very, very abusive towards me. I do what I can to give her a little bit of grace, because when I told on the family I'm the one who destroyed the family. I'm the one who ruined, everyone's life. And that was programmed into her at that early age.
Yep.
Okay.
And I believe a lot of that hard wiring has not been dismantled in her.
Right.
So I had to make the decision quite some time ago to not even talk to her on the phone, because what she would put me through verbally was so, it destroyed me, because I love my sister, and it just destroyed me. And I was like, I'm sorry, sis, but I can't put up with your abuse towards me.
Yep.
I can't. You go live your life, and I'm going to go live my life. So there was a parting of ways there. But I'm glad that through the 7 years of fighting in the legal system, fighting the Ministry of Social Services and my biological parents, that my sister and I were able to stay together in this same foster home as permanent wards.
Oh,
that was
that's
7 years of a hardcore court case.
Wow.
From 6.5 to the age of 14, when we actually won that court case.
So you had to fight for all that time just to stay together as siblings?
Yes, to stay together
Wow.
as siblings, to stay under the same roof, because my foster parents at this point were like, no, these are our kids and you're not going to take them away.
Yeah.
But for 7 years, they had to fight to keep us together, fight to keep me from being adopted out and separating us, and to keep us under the same roof, and to keep us away from the biological parents, because my father was fighting to have us back.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's like the whole system seems very confusing.
Very.
Why anybody
Very
would think
protective,
there
that's for
would,
sure.
be any other way, then why would you not want to keep siblings together? It seems quite
Especially people are like, we
counterproductive,
want to
but
keep them together. Why would you then try to? It doesn't.
and they're able to, right? Like it's
Well,
not like,
yeah.
okay, financially we can only, handle one. It's like we've got the two, we want them together, we want them to, this to be our family. And yeah, that's a whole other very complicated scenario, I'm sure. But I wanted to just circle back to because you've already unraveled quite a bit, and I want to just talk a little bit more, and to the best of your ability, because you were young, I'm sure, so there's some things that maybe are a little fuzzy, but you're talking about being in the hospital and then the psych ward as a 6-year-old.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, I don't understand how a 6-year-old goes in the psych ward. Like it just, I realize that this is because of the unhealthy parents. But can you just go into a little bit more detail about that part?
So I wasn't sure if it was my father's lawyer at the time. And honestly, to this day, he's passed on now, but to this day, just the thought of him and his name makes me sick. I don't know if it was because of his lawyer recommending that they put me in the psych ward for assessment to try and discredit my biological father from the accusations coming out of me of the abuse and the violence and the essay and all of that.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's again was something I didn't know was happening. Because I was in and out of hospitals already, being sick and surgeries and broken bones, poisoning, you name it, failure to thrive. I just figured I was going
just back in the hospital.
Yeah, to be told, no, you're staying.
6 months is significant. That's a really long time to be in an assessment, and then I'm sure there was a certain amount of it that you needed the help to get healthy. That was part of it, right? That they realized that there was a duty on their end to get you healthy again, which is probably why you were there for so long.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was also a method of protection as well. Because like at this point, we're not transitioned into the foster home yet.
Right.
I think they needed to go through that. So my biological sister was still with my abusive parents, still with our abusive parents. So I don't know what she went through for that time frame, because like I was her protector.
Probably a lot of manipulating, probably a lot of poisoning her against you, right?
Yeah, there was. There was a few things that I didn't agree with what I went through in that psych ward.
Sure.
It added to some of the trauma.
Absolutely.
Like I remember when we walked through the doors and my father was basically saying, you know, I'm dumping this piece of shit off onto you guys now. You deal with her.
Yeah.
And he said some other unsavory things, and that's when I realized that like I'm being disposed of in a hospital and in what's going on here.
Right.
I hit the floor, yelling, screaming, begging. They had to restrain me.
Take your time.
And for anybody who's listening and wondering sort of why we're doing this, because obviously this is a very difficult conversation that we're having. And we all know each other.
We do.
So to sort of back it up a little bit, we met B. She's been a part of our community online for the last few months now. Our paths managed to cross in the big old world of social media, which was such a blessing.
Yeah.
And we felt it was so important to shed light on some of these scenarios. But I know we do get asked, like, why are we telling our stories? And doesn't it feel like we're reliving it? And to a certain extent, there is some validity to that. However, it is, you can see everybody getting choked up. There is so much healing that comes from getting, for lack of a better word, this shit off your chest. You're purging it. Yeah, we're telling stories these are survival stories. These aren't, just stories of abuse and stories of trauma. These are survival stories that we're sharing, and that B is going into detail about what some of these circumstances are and what is actually happening in the world with some people and some families and what people have been through. And I just wanted to give a little context to that. And thank you for being so vulnerable.
Yep.
And hopefully, you're feeling up to sharing more. And there's so much more to this, of course. But it is difficult to be vulnerable. But, I guess the reason why we're doing this is because these are survival stories, and there is a freeing aspect to sharing this, and it helps in that healing journey. So it's just an important part I wanted to just to take a moment to recognize.
No, and I'm glad that you said that, Monica, because the other part of this too is, why should anybody have to carry this around their entire lives as if it's something that they should be ashamed of, as if it's something that they should hold on to because, they deserved it. Like that's the part that I understand people being uncomfortable, hearing things that make them uncomfortable, but imagine the person that carries this shit around, that has never, felt safe enough to talk about it. And if it takes years for this shit to be ingrained inside you, it's going to take years for it to finally, you're going to be free of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I find also that instead of dismissing the triggers and resuppressing those memories, it is better, in my opinion, based on my personal experiences, to hit those triggers head on and just plow my way through it. And the more I do that, no matter how many times that same trigger might come to the forefront, the less impact it has on me, the less it sticks around, the more I feel empowered and strengthened, because I'm going, no, you no longer have that power over me. You can no longer tear me down or influence me and poison me from the inside out. I am done with you. So it's really digging deep into those wounds and pulling all that crap out so that they can close up and heal. The scars are going to frickin' be there. But I learned a long time ago to just plow my way through those triggers, and no matter how many times they come, a lot of them are less impactful on me now. I can just sort of breeze through it and go, oh, I'm feeling a little off. All right, it's not bothering me anymore. And move forward to the next batch of healing. If it makes sense for a lot of people, that's what works for me. And I think sharing is crucial. I think sharing is important. So much of this is swept under the carpet. So much of this is behind closed doors. So much of our system, the ministry, the police, no offense to them, some of them are good, some of them are not, as well as the legal system, are so quick to close the doors on this stuff that there's not enough being done for justice. There's not enough being offered for that help and that assistance for people who've been through this stuff too.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
No,
Yeah, there's a certain amount of awareness that can be shed on these matters, and for people, to understand like what has, like what's taken place, and some good, some not so good, sadly. But
Yeah, definitely. I feel like my brain just went completely off track, but
no, this is good. Yeah. So I mean, you spoke a little bit about, okay, so when we're looking at timeline wise, so you were with your biological parents and your
Yes.
sister up until you were 6.5, and that's when a lot of like the physical, and I mean you've mentioned a few pretty scary things that you've talked about. One thing though that I heard you say was like the parties, and
Yes.
that for me is a sensitive spot too, because and I can't relate to you on the same level of
Mhm.
of what that was like for you, but my house was the party house.
Yeah.
And I know about bringing that danger into the home.
Mhm.
And I was significantly older than you. Like I was in my teens when I was sort of around that. But can you talk a little bit more about what you meant about that sort of party piece and being a child and what that was?
I can absolutely. um, I always refer to it as being passed around like a party favor. You don't know who the people are. Like there was close friends of the family that I remember. But then there were other people who would come to the party through other invites. And I say we because my sister was subjected to this as well. You had to remove your clothing, and you were basically passed around from person to person and molested by these people. And what's really sick is that even though part of the healing process, this stuff was talked about, there's so much disbelief that it gets dismissed, and people are, that happened, it's just your imagination. And I'm like, no, man, I was there. And if it wasn't being passed around like a party favor that way, we were forced to remove our clothing and be paraded around the apartment building for other people to see. We were also taken out to the street. So our clothes would be thrown over the balcony, and we were paraded through for everybody to see, unclothed. I'm sure that some people thought that was just innocent, but for what was going on
after
inside,
what you were,
it was not innocent. And then we were made to collect our clothing off the ground outside, but dance in front of the apartment building with our clothes off like we were monkeys.
Humiliation tactics.
Total humiliation. And I mean, you couldn't say no. If you said no, you got beaten. And then, of course, we were given alcohol as part of the placating us and getting us, I guess, more willing, more pliable.
So you were given alcohol as children
Yes.
to sort of aid in this. I don't even know what you would classify it as.
This sick,
very
sick torture.
I can't even put what's even worse is for me is that there's no justice brought upon the people at those parties. Like, it's not like I can go back and point out the people who molested me at the parties and have justice served. So they got to walk away knowing what they've done. And I'm the one having to move forward, trying to, like, I don't even know if I can possibly forgive them for what they did. Strangers, friends of the family, if you can even call them friends.
Well, and that's what was sort of kind of like, going through my mind of like, obviously the people, your parents, we're talking about extremely dysfunctional, sick individuals. and I guess they attract other very sick individuals. I just, in my mind, I just can't understand how like that conversation comes about, or how they like I mean I will never understand. I'm not a fucking psychopath or whatever. So to me it's so absolutely insane.
I think they bring it about as this is funny, this is a joke, you know, like a lot of covert abuse happens in joke form.
Yep.
And I think it was like now this is a I just had another flashback. This is sort of like a party trick. Watch our party tricks happening in a game. It was like a game and everybody had to play, and if you didn't play, well, whatever the consequences might be for that, I don't know. But the other thing is too is that the adults would some of them would strip naked, and they would take and make a fake diaper on themselves. Yeah, like sorry, I just saw my uncle in that fake freaking diaper walking down the hallway coming into the living room, and he's all and he wasn't the only one who did that, and I don't know what the purpose behind that is, so I think that's something I suppressed. But I remember the weird diaper thing that they would do too, which is like
bizarre. And
yeah, very, I'm sorry, that's like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
What was that? I don't think I want to remember right now, to be honest with you, but I'm sure at some point I'm going to have to, it's going to probably come to the surface, and I'm going to have to address that suppressed memory.
Yeah.
You think about, and I mean, in all honesty, I've witnessed particularly behaviors of a nature similar to that, and like it does happen. It really does, and I think the hardest part to believe is you either accept it to stay safe, or you do something about it. And unfortunately, the fight or flight to stay safe over trumps the ability to do anything about it.
Exactly.
Because there's also that part that's like, who the fuck would ever believe this? How, you know, this that clearly this has been going on for so long. Who's ever going to believe this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how is anyone going to believe one person versus all these people that are seemingly participating in this really fucked up behavior?
Yeah. And I think that's the other thing that added to some of the trauma was when I said it wasn't just my dad, it wasn't just my mom. Oh no, well, those are the only two you talk about. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you about the other stuff that's happening, and you're dismissing me. You're not hearing me. This happened. It's not make-believe. It's not a freaking fantasy. I mean, I had bruises from this shit, plus other damage. So, and doctors dismissed it.
Somebody make this
Kid fell off the playground. I have it in records. Oh, she fell off the bed. That's how she broke her leg. I don't fucking think so. I know what happened. But just because my dad opened his mouth and said, oh, she fell off the bed and that's how she broke her leg, that's the story he told, but that's not what happened. Oh, those bruises are because she was playing in the schoolyard and she fell off the jungle gym or the monkey bars, and that's how she got the bruises. And that's what goes down on record, because the doctors did not want to deal with the abuse in the home. Another way of sweeping it under the carpet.
That is a huge component in that. You know, you look at kids that go through some, like, I mean, describing what you're describing and living their entire lives in that situation until, like you said, either their lives are taken or finally they're put into foster care. And sometimes the foster care is even worse than the home life that they were just pulled from. And you ask yourself, you're like, how the fuck is this happening?
Exactly.
Why is this happening? What is wrong in our world that this is something that you would just dismiss when a child is like, these awful things are happening to me, and you would rather look at a child and be like, oh, it's just all in your head, because that's easier to deal with than actually fucking helping them.
And facing the truth that this happens in our world, and this sickness is there, and these evil people do this shit. Like there is no tolerance for me. If I know a child is being abused, or if I come across a situation like that and I see a child being abused, yeah, I think things are going to change quite drastically, because I know how this system fails, and I matters just might take care of themselves
Right.
if
Yeah.
it crosses my path,
Yeah,
unapologetically.
well,
So
I think a lot of people would agree with you. In the same situation, it's unfathomable. Like, yeah, what can
yeah,
take place, and the lack of support, accountability, resources,
yeah,
you name it. And it's not like this is isolated to just where we live. This is across the board, but
it
Yep.
is.
it perpetuates a lot of these problems when there's no accountability.
No, it's crazy. I mean, and not just this just popped in my head, and it's not. But we have the highway of tears.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Like, this is a thing where women just go missing.
Yep.
People just go missing.
Oh well.
Nobody does anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we know that there's other really unfortunate bullshit parts to that
Mhm.
are absolutely despicable. But it's just the levels of just, oh, I'd rather just don't see it. When they say ignorance is bliss, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, guess what?
Nuts.
So B, I'm sure there's more to this. Is there more from this early, like this part of your life that you wanted to share? Is there more? I know
Maybe
we've got many more
what I'll do
episodes
is
to come, but
I'll bring it to the tail end of that 7-year court case and stop it there. Because I think a lot of people also don't realize is that, for one, I was forced visitation with my biological parents once I went into foster care. Even though I kept saying no, even though I would physically react and get sick, even though after those visitations I would come back and I would be a complete wreck, and it would take, days, if not weeks, for my foster mom to settle me back down again. Because my biological parents continued to abuse me, utilizing the legal system and utilizing those visitations. And I felt the brunt of it every fucking time. I couldn't get away from it, even though I was in the foster home where there was that safety there. I was forced into those visitations. I was not allowed to say no. It was court ordered. It was ministry ordered. It was all of that shit. And it was all to the detriment of my health. So even though I went into foster care at the age of 6.5, for another 7 years, I continued to be abused by my biological parents.
wow. And so those visitations, were they like overnight visitations? Were they just for
No,
the
thank
day?
God.
Were they so like you would go and see them like every week though?
To be honest with you, I think it was like a once a week visitation.
Yeah.
It wasn't overnight until after my biological mother divorced my father.
Oh.
That was a good thing for her. But when they got divorced, that's when they allowed my biological mother to do the overnights with us. And that was with consent from the foster parents.
Oh,
Who
okay.
in my world are my parents. Because the dynamics changed. As soon as she got rid of her abuser, she wasn't abusive. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So she
Well,
was
she was,
very
I'm
much under
sure,
the
heavy.
influence.
Yeah, I was going to say manipulated, influenced. Obviously, there's, I'm sure, a certain element of abuse, of course, that she was
Oh, yes.
subjected to.
Yeah. Yeah. I see a lot of that plain as day in my head as well, what she went through by him. Yeah, so I know that the other thing as well, one of the huge wins from winning our court case was they implemented and made it mandatory, or not mandatory. What's the word I'm looking for? We set a precedent with our court case that children did not have to go into the courtroom with their abusers to testify.
Oh, good.
When
Wow.
we won that court case and that came out, it came out in the papers. And that's something that was brought to my attention when I was old enough to understand that it was kind of like a groundbreaking court case. Even though it took 7 years, it was groundbreaking because that precedent was set. And I think a lot of that was because we were forced in the courtroom to testify against our abuser. And that intimidation and that threat is right there in our face.
Right.
So the changes were made, and now we were either audio recorded or videotaped, and that was what was brought into the courtroom instead of us physically having to be in there with him.
Yeah, and being under that like direct duress of
Yep.
your abuser sitting, judging, reacting.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Which will set the voice and the next steps for the rest of the unfolding of my life, which we can kind of touch on, I guess, in the next episodes, because I'm sure you guys are on more of a time frame today than I am, so I want to be
well.
It's
I want
also
you to be able.
It's a lot to process and to
exactly.
To put out and to treat it as delicately as it is, because it is delicate. Like this information is not fucking.
It's not easily digestible, right? It's not easily digestible, and it's not meant to be. You're not supposed to digest this shit. You're supposed to chew through it. So I fully understand that.
Yeah, so I mean, we are planning to do further episodes, of course, to talk more about your story. And thank you so much again for sort of starting us off and giving us some context for where you started and what this looked like for you. If you could just let us know and our listeners know why, and I mean we probably already touched on it a bit, but why are you sharing your story? What is the motivation for why you are here sharing your story?
I would say right off the top of my head, the biggest thing would be if sharing my story helps at least one person, whether they are in a situation like that now or they're fresh out of that situation and well on their healing journey, to let others know like they are not alone in any of this. There are other survivors, thrivers, and overcomers out there. And
survivors, thrivers, overcomers. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can either continue to wallow in that victimhood mentality, or you go, no, I survived this shit, and I'm gonna move forward with my life, living the best life I possibly know how to do at this time. But every step it gets better. Every step it gets a little bit easier, and it's you time. It's doing it for you this time. You don't need to put your energy into anybody else. You need to put that energy and that love back into you and heal you. That's super key, right? I don't believe in being silent. I remember people telling me I need to shut up and stop talking about it. And for me, that's fighting words. No, I'm not going to shut up, and I'm not going to stop talking about it. I'm coming from survivor thriver mentality, not look at me, woe is me, pity me, feel sorry for me. Bullshit. I don't want your pity. I don't want your empathy. I've been through this shit, and I'm rising above this shit. And that's my healing journey, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. I don't think it should be hidden. I don't think we should be kept silent. I don't think it should be swept under the carpet. I'm just going to quickly go from my notes. So
yeah, absolutely.
I also believe that speaking about it is very healing. It's a great way to purge and get rid of and address and bring to light the reality of what happened to you and work through it. Because I don't think suppressing it and being silent, it's like you're harboring that poison in your system. And until you start working through it, that poison is just going to continue to eat away at you.
Yes.
And if it's not eating away at you, maybe that poison leaches out on other people because you haven't taken the time to heal and address it, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Over time, I find for myself, it holds less power over me, and I feel more empowered by sharing. Getting my voice back, it feels like I'm stepping out of the darkness by this purging and stepping into the light, my light. I think I've been so busy protecting my light from all that trauma. Like I can just see myself with that light going like this, protecting it. Now it's like nobody can take that from me. Here it is.
Yep.
Encouraging others, which is also encouraging me, motivating others to step into their healing journeys, hopefully motivate them for themselves, and encouraging, and to build up this support group with like-minded people who are on their healing journey and sharing that wisdom and that knowledge and that love as we move forward. I think that's kind of like some of my key points as to why at the beginning of this year I stepped out boldly and said, here I am, world. I don't care if you like me or not. It's time for me to share, and it's time for me to deepen my healing journey. Come along with me, walk with me. Let's walk together and make this happen.
Yeah,
Life is beautiful.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Right. And I think my favorite saying is, for all the shit that's ever been thrown at me, I'm turning that into fertilizer for my internal garden.
Oh,
and that's what I'm doing. For all the rocks that were throwing at me, I'm building my fucking palace. So get the fuck out of my way, because you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Walking with too, because we actually had that conversation last night in the live with Tony. Yeah. And I said one of the most important things for me always is to stay humble.
Yes.
To stay humble, keep that humility, and continue this journey as a good human, and knowing, it's not about where you're going to go, where this is going to take you. It's literally about the people you're going to meet and the lives you're going to change.
Yeah.
And your own lives. Like, us as speaking in a group.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because it's like, no, this isn't about me. I don't want to be worshipped. I don't want to be grandized. I don't want any of that stuff. No. I want to walk alongside you. Come with me. Let's go on a picnic.
Yep.
Yeah, you want to cry? Here's my shoulder. It might be small, but it works. You need two ears that work. I will do what I can to sit and listen for you. I'm going to hold that space, and I'm going to do everything I can to let you know that there's safety within that space, and I've got you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Amen, sisters. Amen.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm so blown away. Yeah, it just, gives us that motivation to just keep, all doing what we're doing, right? And I know you're quite active on social media. So where can people find you and learn more about you and what you've got going on? I know you're a writer. You've got lots of stuff going on.
So right now, TikTok is my main platform. So I go by B Woman of Faith on TikTok, and I also have another one where I am writing through my healing process. It's called Divine Be-isms on TikTok. So I have two separate accounts. One, definitely get raw and real, and you'll see more of my face, and I share more of that story that way. And then the other one, I dig deeper, because I strongly believe that my writing voice is one of my strongest attributes. And it's also another potent way for me to purge. And if I'm struggling up here to piece things together, as soon as I get it out in writing, I get that clarity.
Great.
So I do that, but I do have Instagram and I do have Facebook. I am trying to branch out to those two. And of course, you've got the Got Trauma podcast, that you guys are operating. Yeah. I just lost the word. It was in my head.
Yeah,
my tongue did not want to sit in it.
We'll put your social media links in our show notes so that people can just click and find you that way. And follow more, kind of that day-to-day sort of thing, like you mentioned. And this has been a great introduction to you and your story, and so much more to come. Thank you again for just sharing your vulnerability and having this completely just raw, uncut, all those things. We're delving into it all, and it is heavy conversation, but necessary.
I'd like to thank both of you as well. And I mean, huge credit and huge shout out to both of you as well. And I feel really blessed with the connections that have happened over the social media platform, which is still blowing my mind every day.
I know.
It's crazy.
You guys came together. You guys are united. You guys are very distinct individuals as well. You two are both on your healing journey, giving voice to the things that you've been through. You've created this podcast, opening those doors as well on your social media platforms. And just in this time frame we spent together, you have shown strength in the vulnerability as well. So, you know,
Thank you.
there were triggers there for you guys too. There were things that hit emotionally for you guys as well. And
I tend to hold on to things and process them later. I'm sure this is going to be an interesting evening for myself. I think
I let it go as it comes. I have to. I can't. It's one of those things
been taking it all in.
I can't do it. I have to let it go.
I'm kind of like that shooken up pop bottle.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like
you
Monica.
Pop bottle and you kind of.
Yeah. And I'm like,
yeah, so I have to do the slow release. There are times where I keep that lid on really tight and then I blow up later. Right?
I was gonna say that sounds like Monica. Monica's like shakes the pop and then opens it and then it's like
yeah, and then I'm a disaster. Yeah, I am doing like a fireside yoga and meditation tonight on purpose because I know that would be a, you know, balance it all out.
You should record a little bit of that if you're comfortable sharing, because I think that would be like a beautiful thing to.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah,
this is what I do. I'm
not
for
doing
healing.
like I'm going to it. I'm not hosting it or anything. But
no, but you can't take a video while you're there.
I'm sure I can. Yeah.
I'm sure if you were like, this is people probably be all eat that shit up.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I would.
It's my first time doing a nighttime
one. Eat.
It is the good shit you want to eat. Over here digesting all these trauma rocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Trauma boulders.
Oh man.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. I'm so glad that we are
Monica and B.
you know, on this, you know, journey for the next, you know, few episodes, highlighting everything that is you, this wonderful person who we've managed to connect with. And we're just grateful for you and appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And I know we've unraveled a lot and there's more to come, and take care of yourself the rest of the day and give yourself some grace. And I don't know, whatever you do that makes you feel good.
Ice cream and chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've got family. My family's apparently going to be here any second. That's what I noticed like 10 minutes ago. I just happened, my phone clicked on and I was like, you're what? You're 10 minutes away. Thought you were going to tell me before you left, but that's fine.
This is perfect. So
yeah, it worked out perfectly. But yeah, I love you guys very much. And I'm very, very grateful that we are doing this. And
yes, thank you. And everybody stay tuned for part 2.
Yes, stay tuned for part 2. Okay. Love you guys.
Love you. Okay, we'll
thank
see
you so
again.
much. Blessings, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit those subscribe and share buttons. We'll see you at the next one.